Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha. Paridanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. We offer our respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani. Her appearance day is, what is it now? It's on Wednesday, Radhastami. Very sacred day. Okay, devotees, well, thank you for coming and being here. It's very nice to be with you. It's a sacred day today. It's the appearance day of Mother Sita, the consort of Lord Ramachandra. So, and of course, Mother Sita is an expansion of Srimati Radharani. So we are going to focus on Srimati Radharani. And in order to do this, I'm going to read first of all Caitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela chapter 4, the confidential reasons for the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I'll read verse 83 and then a few of the following verses. Let's see. Anyway, a few verses after that, because this verse doesn't really have a purport, although it's a super important verse. It doesn't have a purport other than Prabhupada saying that it's a text from Brihad Gautamiya Tantra. But the author of Caitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he is effectively given a purport by through what he says in the following several verses. So we'll read this verse 83, then we'll read on some of the other verses which are elaborating on this verse. Okay, so here we go. Adi Leela, Caitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 4, verse 83. Really amazing classic verse. Devi Krishna Mai Prokta, Radhika Paradevata, Sarva Lakshmi Mai Sarva, Kanti Sammohini Para. Translation: the transcendental goddess, Srimati Radharani, is the direct counterpart of Lord Sri Krishna. She is the central figure for all the goddesses of fortune. She possesses all the attractiveness to attract the all-attractive personality of Godhead. She is the primeval internal potency of the Lord. Sure, this is just an incredibly deep verse. It's hard to get any deeper than that. But what it is, it's an explanation, a description of who is Srimati Radharani, what is her position, and just in simple terms, and who is she? She is really a very special person. So like I said, Prabhupada doesn't exactly give a purport in the usual sense of explaining and elaborating and clarifying the particular verse under discussion. But what Srila Prabhupada does, or not Prabhupada, what the author of the book, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, what he does in the next several verses, he just goes through this verse to elaborate, sort of like word by word. So the first word is Devi. Devi means resplendent and most beautiful, or else it means the lovely abode of the worship and love sports of Lord Krishna. Then the following verse 85, next word is Krishna Mai, Devi Krishna Mai Prokta. So next word is Krishna Mai. Krishna Mai means one who's within and without a Lord Krishna. She sees Lord Krishna wherever she casts her glance. Such an incredibly beautiful word, incredibly beautiful word. And then verse 86, or Krishna Mai means that she is identical with Lord Krishna, for she embodies the mellows of love. The energy of Lord Krishna is identical with him. And actually, Prabhupada gives a short purport. Let's just read the purport. Krishna Mai has two different imports. First, a person who always thinks of Krishna both within and without, and always remembers only Krishna wherever he goes or whatever he sees, is called Krishna Mai. Also, since Krishna's personality is full of love, his loving potency Radharani, being non-different from him, is called Krishna Mai. Okay, and then verse 87, her worship, Aradhana, consists of fulfilling the desires of Lord Krishna. Therefore, the Puranas call her Radhika. Radhika. Radhika means the suffix, yeah, ka in Sanskrit basically means of, like Krishna ka means of Krishna. So Radhika, Radha coming from Aradhana means worship. And Radhika then means one who worships, the greatest worshipper, the greatest servitor. Let's see. And here's a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Truly, the personality of Godhead has been worshipped by her. Therefore, Lord Govinda, being pleased, has brought her to a lonely spot, leaving us all behind. Leaving us all behind here in South Africa or in Bali. But this is the gopis speaking. When Krishna disappeared from the rasa dance, taking Radharani with him. And verse 89, therefore Radha is Paramadevata, the supreme goddess, and she is worshipable for everyone. She is the protectress of all. And she is the mother of the entire universe. It's deep. It's just so deep. Well, let's keep on reading a few more verses. I've already explained the meaning of Sarva Lakshmi. Radha is the original source of all the goddesses of fortune. Or Sarva Lakshmi indicates that she fully represents the six opulences of Krishna. Therefore, she's the supreme energy of Krishna. The word Sarvakanti indicates that all beauty and luster rest in her body. All the Lakshmis derive their beauty from her. Kanti may also mean all the desires of Lord Krishna. All the desires of Lord Krishna rest in Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radhika fulfills all the desires of Lord Krishna. This is the meaning of Sarva Kanti. Lord Krishna, now this is verse 95. Lord Krishna enchants the world, but Sri Radha enchants even him. Therefore, she is the supreme goddess of all. Sri Radha is the full power, and Lord Krishna is the possessor of full power. The two are not different, as evidenced by the revealed scriptures. They're indeed the same, just as musk and its scent are inseparable, or as fire and its heat are non-different. Thus, Radha and Lord Krishna are one, yet they have taken two forms to enjoy the mellows of pastime. Okay, all right, I think that's enough. Isn't that nice? Isn't that just completely out of this world? Let me just read the verse again, the main verse, the first verse. Devi Krishna Mai Prokta, Radhika Paradevata, Sarva Lakshmi Mai Sarva, Kanti Sammohini Para. Of Lord Sri Krishna. She is the central figure for all the goddesses of fortune. She possesses all the attractiveness to attract the all-attractive personality of Godhead. She is the primeval internal potency of the Lord. Hare Krishna. So what can we say? It's just, wow, that is just really amazing. Amazing, more than amazing. But let us just have a look just a little bit here at what's being said. And then we'll carry on to some other things. So the question is, or the point under discussion is, who is Srimati Radharani? What is Srimati Radharani? And the answer to that question, well, one of the verses we read just now, it talked about the non-difference. They're one. Radha and Krishna are one. That's in the sense that the energy, as Prabhupada says, Sri Radha is the full power, and Lord Krishna is the possessor of full power. The two are not different. So that's the idea. Radha and Krishna are one as a person, and their personal internal potency are basically one. Actually, they're one and different. I think all you devotees are knowledgeable enough in Krishna consciousness to be aware that our philosophy is called Achintya Bhed Abhed Tattva. That it's Achintya means it's not so easy to grasp, or even literally Achintya actually means it's inconceivable. It's Achintya. It's not totally Achintya ultimately, but there's definitely the element of it being somewhat inconceivable. Achintya Bhed Abhed tattva, that the truth, the tattva, the truth is that actually everyone and everything is bathed, different from, and obeyed, not different from, Krishna. All of us, actually, but particularly Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani, the main verse we're looking at, says, she is the primeval internal potency of the Lord. So Lord Krishna, he has his three main potencies. One is the internal potency, the spiritual potency. We'll just elaborate a little on that in a minute. Then there's the external potency. That's this material energy, the material world. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. Krishna says, these are my separated material energies. So that's the external energy. And then there is in between, kind of in between, is us. We are the marginal potency. Marginal means actually we're spiritual. Actually, we're really part of the internal potency, or if not exactly part of, but we are connected with the internal potency. Yes, but at the same time, where marginal means not that we have, like a dual nature, material, spiritual, or spiritual, material. We're spiritual, we just said. But the problem or the thing is, we have marginal tendencies. We can go this way, we can go that way. It just depends. If we go this way, it means we're in the spiritual world, in what is really our natural home with Krishna, because we're spiritual. But if we go that way, the other way, then we end up in the material world, in quarantine, in lockdown. I mean, the whole thing's a big lockdown, actually, when you get into it, not just the last few months. But we get locked into material life. We get locked into material life on the wrong side of the margin. Yeah. Now you all understand it's a very simple thing. What is a margin? It separates one side from the other side. So we went on to the wrong side, I'm afraid. And here we are. Whether like me here, I'm in Durban, Sabyasachi Prabhu is in Bali, in Singaraja. Some of you, we're all just wherever we are, within the material world. So, so we're marginal potency in that sense, in the sense that actually we're spiritual by nature, but we have this marginal tendency. We can turn this way or that way, and, we all took the wrong turn. And now we're in our different places in the material world. Of course, actually, right now, we've taken a right turn, a correct turn, in that we've turned back towards Krishna. It just takes a little while to make the journey to really get back there. But at least we're headed in the right direction. And therefore, devotees are very, very special people. Very special people. So yeah, there are these three energies: internal spiritual potency, external material potency, and in between marginal, spiritual in nature, but with marginal tendencies, and that's us. So Srimati Radharani in this verse here, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, actually he's quoting from another Vedic literature. She is the primeval internal potency of the Lord. That's what he says, yeah. So now let's just analyze, just very briefly, very simply, what is the sort of constitution of that internal potency? What is it made of? Mainly, of course, it's, it's a big subject. There are all sorts of, different elements involved. But in simple terms, there are three main parts of the internal spiritual potency. We use the terms, I'm sure you've all heard, Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat meaning eternity or existence, actually. Real existence is eternal. Unreal existence, like our existence in the material world, is not eternal. And therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna refers to it as being non-existent. Anyway, that's another subject. It's a little slightly complex aspect of our philosophy, that something which is temporary, in a certain sense from the spiritual perspective, doesn't have a real existence, substantial, because it changes all the time. Anyway, so Sat, let us just say it means eternal. Then Chit means consciousness or knowledge. And Ananda means bliss. Actually, these are names of the states that someone enters into when they're under the influence of the spiritual potency. But the three energies themselves from which the states of eternity, knowledge, and bliss come, they're called Sandhini. Sandhini Shakti means the potency of existence or the potency of eternity. Samvit Shakti means the potency, the energy of consciousness or knowledge. And Hladini, potency, is the potency from which comes bliss. Yeah, bliss is the effect when you come in contact with the Hladini potency. So who is Radharani then? Well, the verse says, she is the primeval internal potency of the Lord. It's an interesting statement. The subject is it's a little subtle. Actually, if we really become very precise about it, she is the pleasure potency, the Hladini Shakti. That's who she is. She's not exactly the eternity potency. She's not exactly the consciousness potency. She is the potency of ecstasy, of bliss, who, by Krishna's arrangement and just by some transcendental arrangement, has manifested as a separate person, a separate person. Actually, she's part of this energy, internal potency of Krishna. She's part of Krishna's energy. I hope we're not getting sort of too, abstruse here, but this energy is not different from Krishna. And we read, the verse said, just like fire, heat is not different from fire. Yeah, the energy, the energetic, you cannot really separate them. There's a subtle difference, but actually, ultimately, they're one. So Krishna and his pleasure, Krishna and his bliss, Krishna and his internal potency, that's his potency. It's his energy. It's part of him. And Radharani is the hladini, the pleasure potency, that part of the internal potency. So in that sense, she's a part of Krishna. So when Srimati Radharani and Krishna are enjoined together, having pastimes together, it can be said that Krishna is enjoying himself. Even though she's positioned as apparently an independent person, but she is just part of him. She is Krishna's capacity to enjoy. We all have some capacity to enjoy. It's built into our systems. So Krishna has his capacity to enjoy, which is the complete capacity to enjoy. And that is Radharani. Now, it's interesting, though, that the verse says, she is the primeval internal potency of the Lord. The verse doesn't say she's part of it. The verse says she is it. Now, what is this? What this means is that the eternity potency, that eternity, that consciousness, eternity and consciousness or knowledge, they're simply backgrounds or facilities by which Krishna experiences the pleasure potency. In order for Krishna to experience the pleasure potency, there has to be a place. That's the place's eternity. And there has to be consciousness in order to enjoy. So that eternity, that existence, and that consciousness, that knowledge, are simply facilities for Krishna to enjoy with Srimati Radharani, his pleasure potency. Therefore, in that context, it said, she is the primeval internal potency of the Lord, because she is ruling the other two, the eternity and the knowledge. She's ruling them, and they're simply facilitating her pastimes with Krishna. So it's an interesting subject. It's a very interesting subject. It's amazing. So she is positioned as a separate person, like physically separate, as we're all physically separate from each other. But still she's part of Krishna. She's his ability to enjoy. Now, why is she separated from him, seeing she's part of his being? She's part of what he is. Why is she positioned separately? The reason is in order to increase the ecstasy. To increase the ecstasy by not just being there, sort of, just being there. Just being there, just to be enjoyed, but by interacting as a separate person, apparently separate, or we could say actually separate person. It's one and different. She's different. There she is. She's another person. But she's one because she's part of Krishna and his complete ability to enjoy. Just as an interesting little side point, if you're familiar with Brahma Samhita, you would know that right in the beginning, in the first few, maybe 10 verses or several verses, Lord Brahma describes the relationship of Mahavishnu with Rama, who is a form of Lakshmi. She, as Radha is to Krishna, as Sita is to Ram, as Lakshmi is to Narayan, so Rama is to Mahavishnu. Yes, she is the expansion of Srimati Radharani, who is the eternal consort of Mahavishnu, who is the expansion of Krishna. Now, in Brahma Samhita, in this regard, the very interesting thing, it's just wow, is that Rama, even though she's the consort, like Radha is to Krishna, Rama is not external. She stays within him. This is described there in Brahma Samhita, if you've studied Brahma Samhita at all. She stays within him. She doesn't step outside and speak to him and do things and serve him and joke with him and whatever else. She is within the body of Mahavishnu as his pleasure potency. And they have pastimes together internally within the body of Mahavishnu. And these pastimes, the pastimes between the Lord in whatever form and his consort in whatever form, those pastimes, the interpersonal relationships, they're so incredible, so inconceivable by our standards, just so incredibly transcendental, that in the case of Mahavishnu, his consciousness, because he's having pastimes all the time with Rama, within himself, his consciousness is completely withdrawn. It's not manifest externally, because he's totally absorbed within himself in his pastimes with Rama Devi, because their relationship is just like that. Therefore, externally, he appears to be asleep. He appears to be unconscious, because his consciousness is so absorbed internally in the different interactions that are going on within himself with Rama. So that's just a little, a little different perspective in principle on the subject. So, but this is Radharani. This is Srimati Radharani. And yes, she is part of Krishna, and she simply exists for the pleasure of Krishna because she's part of him. It's like the hand. What is the role in life of the hand? It's just to function in terms of its natural position as part of the body. Your hand cannot decide to just go off somewhere else and do something else, because it's part of the unit. So Radharani is part of the unit of Krishna, but manifest externally in order to heighten the pleasure of Krishna's interactions with his pleasure potency in the form of their different pastimes. I hope you follow the idea. I know it's a little esoteric, and I'm sure I'm not so good at explaining it also, but that is definitely the idea. Therefore, the pastimes between Radha and Krishna, they are just the most incredible pastimes. In fact, they're so incredible. If you take the time to read, maybe before Wednesday, which is the Radhastami day, if you take the time and the trouble to read this chapter, which I've just read some verses from, Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela chapter 4, then you will come out, you will have, as much as it's possible to have for a conditioned soul, you'll have a pretty clear idea. Who is Radharani? What is her relationship with Krishna? Who is she? What is she? In terms of what she is, further, it's explained there in that same chapter. It's explained there that the gopis, at least the main gopis, they're expansions of Radharani. And each of the main gopis, particularly the Astasakis, the 8 main gopis, they are manifestations of different aspects of the personality of Radharani. Wow.
Your friend was using the same app?
I was using the exact same.
What happened? All right, yeah. So they're manifestations of different aspects of Radharani's personality and her being. You can, if you can read up on these things. I mean, that's sort of getting into more detail, deeper into the subject, but I can just give you an example that Radharani, in her capacity as Krishna's pleasure potency, the one whose existence is only there in order to give pleasure to Krishna, among many other things, she has an incredible ability to speak. She can speak in such ways that Krishna faints. It's just so overwhelming, the experience of what she says, that Krishna cannot deal with it, and he faints. She can speak so beautifully. Sometimes she chastises Krishna. It's, these are all, it's a big, very big subject. But Radharani has this incredible, like you could say, the total ability to speak for the pleasure of Krishna. And amongst the gopis, who are expansions of her, Lalita has that particular potency. And others, but this is most prominent, that Lalita embodies Radharani's ability to speak. And there are different pastimes. There are many pastimes in which Lalita, when Radha and Krishna are interacting in this way or that way, there are all sorts of ways they're interacting. But then, for whatever reason, Lalita steps forward and takes over speaking on Radharani's behalf. And because she is the manifestation of his ability to speak, then she can just turn Krishna upside down with her words. It's amazing. I mean, we have no vocabulary to express these things very completely. We can just give hints. These are just ideas, but we can pick up. We can pick up. Like Tungavidya. Tungavidya has Radharani's abilities in terms of magic, mystical powers. Radharani, of course, has all mystical powers in full and more. In her manifestation as Tungavidya has those powers. So Tunga Vidya can do what things? Magical things. You know, maybe I shouldn't talk about it, but Muti, she's a heavy Muti woman. Excuse me. Cultural appropriation. But anyway, seriously, it's actually like that. It's actually like that. Yeah. And the others, they have other, you know, there are literatures. There are literatures where these things are described. And even if I made a DVD, it's, I forget how many years ago, but I'd say 10 years ago. I made a DVD about Varshana, the place of Radharani, and surrounding Varshana are the places of the Astasakis, the 8 main gopis. So there's a section where we talk about each gopi and how they have these particular potencies from Radharani. All right, anyway, but Radharani, she has all those potencies in full and more than in full. How's that? More than in full. Because she, as Krishna is ever expanding, Radharani is ever expanding in her capacity to please Krishna and her desires and her activities to please Krishna. So therefore, the relationship between Radha and Krishna, well, one way in which it's put, there is a book, a small book. It's by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. It's available in English. It's called Prema Samputa. Prema Samputa means the love locket. As you wear you may wear a little locket around. Devotees wear little covertures with Vrindavan dust and so on. So she has a love locket around her neck. And in that story, well, maybe I should tell you the story. It's a bit of a long story. Anyway, Radha and Krishna, they're ever expanding. The joy is ever expanding. The bliss is ever expanding. And Radharani's desire and capacity to please Krishna is ever expanding. Let me tell you that story. Are you familiar with that story, Savyasachi Prabhu? Yes, or you're familiar?
Yes, Samit.
Do you think the other devotees are?
No. We want
Manu
to.
Kanya, are you? All right. Okay, let me tell you the story. The story is that, this is quite a story. The story is that Srimati Radharani and the gopis, they were in somewhere around Varshana. They were somewhere around Varshana, maybe across on Dangar, if you're familiar with the area. So there they were. And, it can be really a long story, actually, but the basic point initially is that Srimati Radharani was transcendentally angry with Krishna. And therefore, Radharani Radharani would not speak to Krishna. I mean, maybe we've all had that sort of experience. Someone gets upset with us and they won't speak with us. You know, we come by, they just look the other way in a very pointed way. You know what I mean? So, but in a transcendental sense, Radharani was like that. Wouldn't speak to Krishna. So you know what Krishna did? Krishna disguised himself as a demigoddess, as a woman or a girl, say, kind of like teenage 15, 16-year-old girl, something, that sort of stage of life. And Krishna went with her, I mean, his girl cousin, one of his girl cousins, what's her name? Oh, I forget which one. Anyway, went to that place at Varshana. Krishna disguised as a girl, as a demigoddess, And they approached Krishna as the demigoddess and his girl cousin, what's her name? Anyway, they approached Radharani and the gopis there near Varshana. And Krishna disguised as a demigoddess, approaching Radharani, started crying and crying and crying. And all the gopis tried to pacify her. And Radharani tried to pacify her. But they couldn't pacify. This is Krishna disguised as a demigoddess. And in the end, Radharani said to the demigoddess, you know, please tell us, what is your problem? We'll do anything to help you. Please tell us. So in between sobbing, the demigoddess, Krishna, the demigoddess said, you know, my problem is this. I am a demigoddess, and I am situated above heavenly planets. And from up there, I watch. But it's strange how I'm feeling this ecstasy. So Radharani tried to pacify the demigoddess, Krishna. You know, what is it? What's upset you so much? If you and off goes Krishna. And so the demigoddess is explaining this, that he tells you he's got to go home, see his mother. But what you don't know is he goes to meet another gopi, a different gopi. He's cheating you. Particularly, he goes to meet Chandravali, who's the head of the opposition party in Goloka Vrindavan. He goes to meet Chandravali. And you think he's gone to help his mother at home. He's cheating you. And when I see this, the demigoddess says, when I see this, I feel for you so much. I just cry and cry and cry. And she started crying again. And Radharani said, no, 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 no. No, no, no. It's not like that. It's not like that. Actually, Krishna loves me far more than the others. And in fact, she says, you know what she says, which I was going to refer to about 10 minutes ago. What she says is, the love of the other gopis for Krishna, it is like a mustard seed, each one. Whereas my love is like Mount Meru. If you're familiar with what is Mount Meru, the idea, you'll know Mount Meru makes Mount Everest, the Himalayas, seem just like a little small hill. It's nothing compared to Mount Meru. So Radharani said like that I know Krishna, I understand Krishna. So I know that he loves me far more than the others. And if he goes to see another one, it doesn't mean he's cheating on me. It just means he feels obliged because she has some love for him. It's just out of obligation. It's not because he loves that other one and there's like a real competition between me and her who will get Krishna's attention. And the demigoddess said, oh, and it's Krishna. The demigoddess says, oh, you are so innocent. You believe this rascal. He's telling you that he loves you more than the others. But I have seen with my own eyes. You haven't seen because he's gone to some other place. But I see because I'm looking from up there. The demigoddess says. And Radharani says, no, 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 no. I know that he loves me far more than anyone else. I know it. And the demigoddess, Krishna, says, how do you know it? Come on. How can you know it? How can you know it? And Radharani replies, I know it because Krishna and I are one person. We are not two people. Therefore, I know it. I understand Krishna because we are one person. And the demigoddess says, oh, come on. You know, you've fallen so much in love with him like a fool that you think that the two of you are one. Oh, come on. Come on. It's just a sentiment. It's just a sentiment. You're two different people. You can't understand him like that. But Radharani insists, no, we are one person. Therefore, I understand him and I know how he feels. And the demigoddess says, listen, all right, all right. Now, you say you're one person. If you're one person, call Krishna here. Let us see if from here, he's out there herding the cows miles away. Call him here. Internally call him here and show that you're one person. So Radharani said, all right, I'll do it. And Radharani sat down and went into meditation, deep meditation, calling for Krishna to come. And devotees, you know what happened? You know what happened? Because Radharani is so powerful and her love controls Krishna so much. Because as we read, she possesses all the attractiveness to attract the all-attractive Lord Krishna. Therefore, when Radharani went into this meditation, calling Krishna within her heart, then Krishna, as the demigoddess, could not remain as the demigoddess. Suddenly the demigoddess transformed and was Krishna. And the gopis, they saw this transformation in front of their eyes. They were just totally, incredibly amazed. But Krishna told them, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Just act like everything's normal. So they did. And after a few minutes, Radharani opened her eyes, and there was Krishna. And of course, Radharani assumed that the goddess was still there. She didn't know that the goddess was Krishna. So she turned around looking for the goddess and said, so see, look, I called him. There he is. See, we're one person. But then she asked the other gopis, where did the demigoddess go? What happened to the demigoddess? And Krishna said, there I was out herding the cows, minding my own business out in the fields, when suddenly I felt this energy just dragging me here. And now I'm here. This is bad. This is very bad. You've made me neglect my duties. Anyway, that's in a very short form. That's the story of the love locket. That Radha and Krishna are one person. And therefore Radharani can control Krishna. Their relationship is so deep and just so incredibly intense. I was told I have to finish after an hour, and it's an hour. So what I want to do to finish, I want to read you something from Srila Prabhupada, in which Srila Prabhupada speaking on a Radhastami day and expressing how, let me just, as a tiny bit of background, just say that because Radharani is the embodiment of all love for Krishna, she is the presiding deity of devotional service. And so any devotional service that any devotee does is going on under the supervision of Radharani. And she's watching. She's watching all of you as devotees. How are you serving? How are you not serving? What is your consciousness? What is not your consciousness? And when she sees you doing nice service, because her only desire is to see Krishna pleased. And when she sees you please Krishna by doing nice service, she becomes pleased with you. So Srila Prabhupada says, listen to this. So anyone who comes before Radharani to serve Krishna, she becomes so pleased. She thinks, here is a devotee of Krishna. She immediately recommends, Krishna, here is a devotee. He's better than me. This is Radharani. I may be not a devotee. I may be most fallen rascal. But if I try to reach Krishna through Radharani, then my business is successful. Therefore, we should worship Radharani first. Instead of offering directly one flower to Krishna, you just put it in the hands of Radharani. My mother, Radharani, Jagannatha, means the mother of the worlds. If you kindly take this flower and offer it to Krishna, Radharani says, you've brought a flower? So she offers it to Krishna, and she tells Krishna that there's such a wonderful devotee from, where shall we say, from Soweto, from Meadowlands, Zone 7. Such a wonderful devotee named Mahaprabhu, or Malini, or Manjari also. Such wonderful devotees. And she tells Krishna, Krishna, I want you to accept these devotees. And Krishna immediately says, yes, yes, yes. Whatever Radharani says, Krishna is just yes, yes, yes. And as Prabhupada says, that I may be not a devotee, I may be most fallen rascal, but if I try to reach Krishna through Radharani, then my business is successful. So, Hare Krishna, Srimati Radharani Ke Jai.
Jai.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj. We have some questions on the chat.
All right.
And mystically, the first section has disappeared. Since they have been asked to everyone, could I just ask one of the other devotees? They can still see them. I can only see one. If you can see the...
I can see 4 questions I can see.
Yes.
We often describe Lord Shiva as the greatest Vaishnava. Is it not, in fact, Srimati Radharani, given that the Lord came himself with her Mudas, Lord Chaitanya, to understand the love of God? Shall I start with that one?
Up to you, Maharaj.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, there's a verse, Vaishnavanam Yata. Well, there's a verse, it's in the 12th canto. It's, it's a bit of a, that's one line. It's one line of 4. Yeah, as Lord Achyuta is the supreme person, as the river Ganges is the supreme river, and as something else is the supreme something else. So Lord Shiva, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnav. Yeah, so the thing is, there's a sort of subtle understanding here. The subtle understanding is that Lord Shiva is influenced by Maya. Yeah. His wife is Maya, Devi. And as any husband will tell you, or maybe they won't be ready to tell you, but as any good husband would tell you, their wife exerts influence over them. That's life, that's just relationships. Ask Atma and Mano if that's true or not. And see what answers you get. You may get 2 different answers from 2 different people. So anyway, Lord Shiva, in the beginning of creation, this is Brahma Samhita again. It's not an easy book, but it's a very good book. That when Mahavishnu glances over the material energy at the beginning of creation, he's just starting the process. First thing is he glances and he injects the living entities who have been in his body since the previous creation was destroyed. Now he injects them through his glance into the material world, which is Maya, and into the womb of Maya Devi. who is his wife. Yeah. So, yes. So that, I mean, no, sorry. Maya Devi is not the wife of Mahavishnu. The glance is Shambhu, who is one of the original forms of Lord Shiva. And the glance impregnates the living entities into the womb. Shiva, as the glance, injects the living entities into the womb of his wife Maya. And then after a little while, they all take birth in the material world again. So it's the sort of original material reproductive phenomenon. Yeah. And then they're together, they're husband and wife. And just any husband and wife, they influence each other. And in this case, Lord Shiva, the husband, he's influenced by his wife, Durga, Maya Devi. Therefore, in Brahma Samhita, there's the famous verse explaining about Lord Shiva that actually he is like yogurt, whereas Lord Vishnu is like milk. What is yogurt? It's just milk. It's not another thing. It's just milk. But it's milk which has been soured by contact with a souring substance. And therefore it becomes yogurt. That's a very famous verse. So the yogurt is Lord Shiva. And the souring substance, the culture, in English we use the term culture for when you make yogurt. You have to get some yogurt culture. The culture is Durga. And Durga, as the culture, changes Lord Shiva, who's otherwise, he's a part of Lord Vishnu. He's the glance of Lord Vishnu. He's part of Lord Vishnu, Lord Vishnu's person. So now, what's this got to do with him being described as the greatest Vaishnav? The thing is, and like I said, it's a bit of a subtle understanding, is that Lord Shiva, because he's influenced by Maya, you have to be a little careful. You don't want to say the wrong thing with Lord Shiva, he may get upset. Therefore, in order to kind of keep him happy, because he is a Vaishnav and he's really into being a Vaishnav, but just to keep him happy, they say, hey, you're the greatest Vaishnav. He's not exactly. He's a very great Vaishnav. He's not exactly the greatest. Actually, there are many who are greater. And ultimately, Srimati Radharani is the greatest. But it's more just to keep him happy, almost to sort of transcendentally flatter him. But otherwise, amongst many Vaishnavas, he is definitely the greatest Vaishnava. Just like amongst all of you, Sabyasachi Prabhu is the greatest Vaishnava. So you may say, oh, you're the greatest Vaishnava. Because it's true in a certain context. So in a certain context, this is said about Lord Shiva. It's like transcendental diplomacy. So here now, oh, look at this. Who's this? This is Paramahansa with a colorful shirt on. Is it? Anyway, it's someone. Okay, here's a question from Mataji, Navina Radhika. So I've heard that actually we cannot serve Krishna directly. All of our service is offered to Krishna through Srimati Radharani. My question is, how can we serve and please Srimati Radharani? That's a nice question. I mean, the other one was too. So you know what you do. you know what you do. What you do is you serve under Srila Prabhupada. That's what you do. Srila Prabhupada is Radharani's mercy incarnate amongst us. And similarly, the representatives of Srila Prabhupada, you know, they're not on the level of Prabhupada, but they're there, you know, they're there. If you serve them, then Radharani will be so pleased. She'll just be so pleased. But also on top of that, we must pray to Radharani directly sometimes. Means like, my dear Srimati Radharani, you are the mother of devotion. You are the presiding deity of devotion. And I want to become a devotee. I want to develop some devotion. And you're the presiding deity of devotion. So please help me to become a proper devotee for your beloved Lord Krishna. Please help me. If we pray in that mood, Srimati Radharani, she will, as they say, take you under her wing. Yeah, as one of her trainee devotees. Yeah. Those are some thoughts on that subject. That's a big subject. You know, for many years here in Durban, every Radhastami, we had a program. It was almost non-stop for the entire day, just talking about Radharani for hours. It's a big subject. It's a big subject. All right, now here's a question from Bhakti Rasa Devi Dasi. How many lifetimes would it actually take to even have an ounce of devotion and mood of the Astasakis for us fallen souls? Is it possible? You know what? That's a little sort of, you're over aspiring. You know, the Astasakis, we should just try to become their servants. And if we really try, if we really take shelter of Srila Prabhupada, if we really try to take shelter and pray to Radharani, like we said, and if we really take shelter of the devotees, then, and we pray for some mood, some bhakti, then we can get it in this lifetime. Yes, we can get it in this lifetime. That's the idea. By Prabhupada's mercy, we can develop it in this lifetime. Where can we read so this is Navina Radhika again. Where can we read the pastimes of Krishna and Srimati Radharani and the gopis in Varshana? Well, you know what? As a general rule, I mean, maybe it's not a hard and fast rule, but I apply it, frankly. I don't I have a few disciples. I don't let them read such literatures until they've read all of Prabhupada's books at least once. And I know some gurus, they don't let their disciples read those books at all, actually. But I know others, they say you must read all of Prabhupada's books 3 times. But, you know, like that pastime I mentioned, just sort of, it was a kind of sketchy presentation. That was from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And there's a book of his. It's called, what's it called? Just give me a sec. Chatu, what's it called? Let me just see here. Chamatkar Chandrika. Chamatkar Chandrika means the moonshine, like a downpour of moonshine, Chamatkar Chandrika, of the nectar of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. It's four pastimes. It's four pastimes. The famous pastime of Krishna disguising himself as Abhimanyu, the husband of Radharani. Krishna disguising himself as the female singer, Haribol. Then Krishna, the pastime of the Krishna as the female doctor, when Radharani is bitten by the snake bite of separation. And the other pastime, when Krishna becomes like the jack in the box. You know, but you should ask your spiritual masters, yeah, if you can read these things, because they're high level. They're high level. And we may not be so high level. Oh, someone here, Bongasipo Natambo, wants to ask directly via video. Sabyasachi Prabhu,
Yes.
what? You can put the person online?
Hare Krishna. Can you
Hare
all hear?
Krishna.
So I'd like to just start by offering my obeisances to firstly Prabhu Atma. I'm from the sharing the SSR WhatsApp group chat. Savya Sachidasi Prabhu, and of course you Prabhu Chaitanya. So I have kind of like a few long questions. So please bear with me. Firstly, you mentioned how Sri Radharani is sort of having internal pastimes with Lord Krishna. And so my question is that kind of similar to how we have interactions with the super soul inside of
I
us,
see.
especially when we're chanting?
All right. You know, there are similarities in very simple terms, but they're not really, you know, those are very intimate personal pastimes which are going on all the time in a state of like vivid awareness of each other's presence.
Mm.
They're actual like ongoing interpersonal interactions, just as we have our interactions with different, like our friends and whoever. So our interactions with the super soul are, you know, they're definitely much simpler than that. And they're not, sometimes it's not clear, is it the super soul? Is it my mind?
Yeah.
Which is interacting with me? Yeah, we get ideas and we think, wow, that came from the super soul. But sometimes it just comes from the mind.
I can
But
definitely
still,
relate to that.
interactions with the super soul, when they're there, they are real interactions with the Lord. So they're very sacred. They're very special. But you know, generally, rather than think too much, you know, am I hearing the voice of the super soul speaking to me? If we're trying to understand something, generally it's better just to ask. You know, means ask a human being, devotee, like Sabyasachi Prabhu. If he's, you know, if you're interacting with him regularly, if you want to understand something in Krishna consciousness, how to do this, what to do, what not to do in Krishna consciousness, generally it's just easier rather than asking the Lord, you know, can you please reveal to me what I should do here? Generally, it's easier just to go to, for example, Sabyasachi Prabhu and ask him, you know, I'm in this situation, what should I do? Because otherwise, you know, if you just ask, you make a prayer within the heart, please help me to understand something. If your mind replies, then you may get the wrong answer, you know. Let me tell you a little story. This is a funny little story. We've got time, Sabyasachi Prabhu? Okay. I joined in England and like almost 50 years, 47 years ago. So about maybe a year after that, I was living in Bhaktivedanta Manor, maybe a couple of years after that. I was living in this one temple, big temple, Bhaktivedanta Manor, near London. And we had a Srimad Bhagavatam class. And there was one new boy there, like a visitor, young English fellow. So he sat there for the class. We all sat there for the class. Then the class finished. We all got up and, you know, some people put away the cushions and we went and looked at the deities and we were still there in the temple room for a few minutes. This boy went into a little cupboard on the side, and would you believe, fasten your seatbelt, he took all of his clothes off, and he took one flower, and he came out into the temple room and walked up in front of the altar, and, you know, and the devotees, it was just like, what is this? Nobody stopped him initially. And eventually they did stop him and said, what are you doing? And you know what he said? He said, yeah, God told me I should come in front of him as I am and give him power. So you follow. It was just the mind. I mean, that's a bit extreme. I'm sure you wouldn't do that. But, that's the mind. Therefore, generally, when we want to find things out, we should ask the devotees. I mean, you know, the suitable devotees, not just anyone. You know what? There's other devotees with questions. Do you mind if I just go on and answer some of their questions now? Is that okay?
Let me just ask one more and then.
All right, one more.
So I feel like the most important one is you spoke about a DVD that you made 10 years ago. I think it was 10 years ago.
What I made?
A DVD.
Oh, DVD. Yeah.
How can we access that?
I've got on computer somewhere. I've got all of that. Otherwise, you know, definitely some of the devotees have. I don't know where you're living. You could always ask around. Otherwise, I could try and find it.
I think Atmatata Prabhu will supply it, Maharaj.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Then I'll follow up with Sabyasachi Dasikab.
Okay, great. So here's a question from Ishvari Kripa. All right. All the personalities who appear during Chaitanya Leela are exalted personalities in Krishna's pastimes. Can you please tell me who was Srimati Sita Thakurani? Whoa. And Janava Devi. Off the top of my head. Well, Janava, of course, this may be subject matter that some of the other devotees online are not familiar with, but Janava is a Nangamanjari, who is Radharani's little sister. That's Janava, who was the main wife of Lord Nityananda, who had 2 wives. Sita Thakurani is the wife of Advaita. Advaita is Mahavishnu. So it would sound like Sita Thakurani is Rama Devi. Would sound like that. Okay, here's another question. Shall I carry on? Asambhayani. Okay. Why do some scriptures hide Srimati Radharani, for example, Srimad Bhagavatam, and some describe her elaborately? Yeah, well, that's a good question. That's a good point. Yeah, the thing is about Srimad Bhagavatam specifically, the thing, an esoteric explanation, which is definitely there, is that Shukadev Goswami, he had to recite the entire Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. He had to do it, and he only had 7 days. There was this cutoff time. He couldn't just go on, let's, like we are now, shall we go on a bit longer? Yeah, okay. He couldn't do that. There was a cutoff, 7 days, and that's it, finish. And because Parikshit was just going to die, and he did, just right after 7 days. So Shukadev Goswami had to finish the whole book in 7 days. And it's a big book, don't you? That's a big book. The first time I read the Bhagavatam, sure, it took a couple of years. They had to do it in 7 days. Of course, they didn't have to read the purports. But anyway, so he was feeling concerned that if I really get into the subject of Srimati Radharani, then I may become overwhelmed and just sort of go into another world of consciousness and either just go into a trance and stop speaking and just be internally absorbed, or I may just start talking and talking and talking about Radharani and in this way not get to the end of the whole Bhagavatam. So to avoid those problems, Shukadev Goswami avoided getting into detail about Srimati Radharani. Having said that, if you read our 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, which actually you should only really read after you've read the previous 9 cantos, but anyway, if you do read, you'll see that the devotees who put it together, they've quoted a lot from the commentaries of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, particularly, about the relationship between Krishna and the gopis, mainly during the rasa dance, but in the context of other pastimes also. Yeah, so in other words, there is information. If you read the 10th canto, our 10th canto, BBT, but you should read the first 9 cantos first, then you'll find, there's definitely descriptions of pastimes. There's some just very beautiful and very nicely presented, like in cultured ways, descriptions of Radharani and her relationship with Krishna. Yeah, so that's the point in that regard. Okay, let's see. We always hear, this is now Paramahansa Das, Haribol. We always hear how Krishna's in everyone's heart. Can we conclude that Srimati Radharani is in Krishna's heart? Oh boy. Well, yes, of course. Yeah, she sort of pervades his being, including his heart. but particularly his heart, because she's part of him. Yeah. But Radharani, listen to this, Radharani is also in our hearts. Because wherever Krishna is, Radharani is there. You know, we have a temple in Delhi, New Delhi in India. And it's the deity there, it's Radha and Krishna, but they're called Radha Pathasarati. Means Radharani with Krishna who's driving the chariot. Like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna from the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And not exactly like here in Durban, we have Radha Radhanath, a Radharani with Krishna, who's the Lord of Radharani in Vrindavan. This is now in Delhi, it's Radharani with Krishna from the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So one devotee, I won't mention any names, from another institution of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, criticized Prabhupada that this is Radha and Krishna. Why do you give Krishna the name Pathasarati? You know, it's not a name of Krishna in Vrindavan. And how can Radha, and he said that, you know, Radharani was not on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And Srila Prabhupada did not appreciate that criticism. And Prabhupada said, wherever Krishna is, Radharani is there. Yeah. So Krishna's within our hearts, Radharani is within our hearts also. Therefore, we can pray to her. She's very close to us. She's so close, she's within us. Okay, let's see now. We're getting there. I think it's just one more. Hare Krishna. Mahamandas. This is a bit of a funny question, if you don't mind me saying. Are we extensions from the Asta Sakhis? No, we're not. We're extensions, not extensions, but we are manifestations from the marginal potency. The Asta Sakhis are extensions from Radharani. Radharani is not marginal potency. She's not a little jiva soul like us. She is the pleasure potency of Krishna. She's part of Krishna. She's part of the internal potency, which is a different category of living being from the marginal category, which is us. So, yeah, and the Astasakis, at least those who are, the Astasakis are all expansions of Radharani. But we're just little living entities manifest from the marginal potency. But still, if you chant 16 rounds a day without offense and really practice devotional service very sincerely, and if you're really humble, I mean really, then you may go back to Godhead at the end of this life. And then you can meet the Astasakis and you can help the Astasakis. Even though you're not an expansion of them, you're you, but still you can associate with the Astasakis. Okay, so we have now Vidyanagar student support. Hari Hari, Hari Hari. Could you please make the connection between Bhagavad Gita and Vrajalila? Well, you know, hopefully you're familiar enough with like the Bhagavatam and the story of Krishna's life. You know, it's all there in the 10th canto, 90 chapters, detailed biography of Krishna. So Krishna appeared in Vrindavan, you know, Mathura, Vrindavan. He was there for 10 or 11 years. Then he went to Mathura. He left Vrindavan, went to Mathura. He was in Mathura for about 25 years. Then he went to Dwaraka, which is quite some distance away on the coast of northwestern India. When he was living in Dwaraka as a prince, then the Bhagavad Gita happened. At some point, there was a big solar eclipse, and Krishna and or so many of the devotees from Dwaraka, they went to Kurukshetra. Oh, well, anyway, that's sort of maybe a slightly different point. But yeah, Krishna, he was living in Dwaraka, and he would travel around. And one time he went up there to Kurukshetra. So, it's about, I don't know, 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers from where he was living in Dwaraka. And there he spoke Bhagavad Gita. And then he returned back to Dwaraka. I mean, that's historically the connection. But if you mean connection in just a purely spiritual sense, the connection is, if you study Bhagavad Gita, if you take it into your heart, and if your life becomes a reflection of Bhagavad Gita, then you'll understand and ultimately you'll enter Vrajalila. Please elaborate on what's going on in the body of Lord Gauranga. Well, Radha and Krishna are there, and they're having pastimes there, and they're really happy. And that's why Lord Chaitanya is so happy. He's in such ecstasy, because he's Radha and Krishna together, combined. No one is interfering with their relationship. And therefore, externally, because he's Radha and Krishna combined, externally he manifests the mood of Radharani and her color. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya is golden, and his mood is compassionate and loving. Yeah, that's basically what's going on there. Okay, that looks like all the questions, as I can see. Okay. I can't hear you.
Thank you, Maharaj. I see, okay, it was a clarification of a question, but I think you've already, there's two more that came in, if you have time.
No, I've got a call coming in from England.
Okay.
It's another meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we can some other time.
Okay. So thank you very much,
sorry.
Maharaj.
Okay.
And if you have any last words to encourage us before you go.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And take guidance from Savyasachi Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Known as Bhakti Caitanya Swami Maharaj ki.
Jai. Jai Ho. Jai Maharaj.
Jai. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol. See you later. Okay, I know.
Okay, so thank you to all of you wonderful souls for attending today's session. And the actual Radhastami day is happening on Wednesday. So there'll be more classes, I'm sure, online from different speakers on the subject matter of Srimati Radharani. And please look up and hear some more, and we can connect and cement this relationship with Srimati Radharani, who is facilitating our devotional service. So thank you very much. We'll see you soon at a temple near you or on the streets of the online platforms. Thank you for coming. If there's anything that you'd like to find out, feel free to contact myself, Paramahansa Prabhu, Atma, Tattva, and Manukanya, somewhere on social media, on WhatsApp, you have our contacts. We'll be happy to hear from you, see how we can serve with you or engage you somehow. Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And Ma,
Saraswati Prabhu. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
So we'll have
Yes,
the class
right.
up on the YouTube channel in a day or so. Please look out. Wusa, that's on YouTube. Hare Krishna. And thank you, Ma, for showing up. Hare Krishna.